The Final Furlong Podcast is proudly brought to you by Geoff Banks Bet. Join the excitement and sign up to Geoff Banks Online now to get 10% off any net losses returned as cash after your first month of betting up to £500 at geoffbanks.bet. Welcome to the Final Furlong Podcast. I made a huge mistake over the weekend, an epic mistake. I became convinced that I'd worked out who's going to win the Derby and decided I was going to back this horse anti-post. He was 20-1. I told Adam Mills of this show that I really fancy this horse to win the race, and he responded by saying, that boat who won the Group 1 in France, forget about it. He's going to be a St. Ledger horse. Said it to another friend of mine in the UK. He went, nah, you're on the wrong one, Kennedy. You need to be on Illinois. Ryan Moore's choice of ride that day. He was a little bit green. He'll improve. He'll be the one that will cause the upset in the Derby. I didn't put a bean on the 20-1 Los Angeles. Now he's 8-1 with Geoff Banks Bet. But anyway, to cheer me up, Aidan Coleman is here as we recap all the Derby trials, the Oaks trials, and all the best racing from the last few days. Welcome to the Final Furlong Podcast, and welcome back, Aidan.
Thanks, Emmett. Come on.
Bit of a disaster, that one, for my anti-post portfolio. But anyway, we'll see if he can actually go and get the job done. And we'll begin with the 40th running of the Group 3 Derby Trial Stakes in Leopardstown, now sponsored by the lads at Cashel Palace Hotel. Aidan O'Brien has now won 5 of the last 6 runnings of the race and 16 in total. It's extraordinary domination. In fact, we'll begin this Final Furlong Podcast with a trivia question. If you know the answer to this, comment below on YouTube. If you're listening to this on Spotify, which most of you are, or on Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube and comment. We'll give you a shout out on the show next week. Who won the first running of the Leopardstown Derby Trial Stakes in 1984? Bonus points if you can also name the trainer, the jockey, and the owner. Don't say it, Aidan, but do you know who it is?
No. Oh, if I'm not allowed to say it, I'll say yes, I do know who it is, but I can't say it.
No, I did. Well,
yeah, I do. Yeah.
Aidan knows.
Yeah, and the colour of the horse, and what number it had, and what weight it had, and who led it up. I know it all.
I will be impressed if a lot of people get this right, by the way, because I was 2 when this horse won, so it's not like I had any idea of what was going on.
Is it an obvious one?
In hindsight, it is, yeah.
Did they win the Derby?
No, but became a legend.
It's like Old Vic or something, isn't it?
Comment below on YouTube. We will give you a shout out on the next episode of the Final Furlong Podcast. Well, the next episode of the Final Furlong Podcast is a very big question time style debate, but we'll give you a shout out in this version of the show next week. It's a race that's got a very good roll of honour. The Leopardstown Derby Trial. Sindar, Galileo, and High Chaparral all went on to win the Derby at Epsom on their next starts. But it's also been won by the likes of Alamshar, Yates, Dylan Thomas, and Fame and Glory. It has been 22 years since the last horse to win this race would go on to win the Derby. It was High Chaparral. And in the last 10 years, the winners have been a mixed bunch, shall we say. So the question is, which category does Los Angeles fit into? Because I think this is a really good performance, Aidan Coleman, but what did you think of him?
Yeah, he got the job done, didn't he? It's hard to know. Like I liked his attitude. He hit the line as well, didn't he? He did everything you'd expect to do in a trial, wouldn't you, basically? He needs to improve from it, which of course he will. And he looks just a very straightforward type of horse, doesn't he? And you know, his run in France at the back end of last year was good, wasn't it? And yeah, I suppose if you were on him for the Derby, you'd be happy enough, wouldn't you?
I'm very, very pleased with him. And I think if you do break down the Derby field, who's running, what that field is going to be like. Look, there's an obvious horse that towers over everybody, and that's City of Troy. But he didn't exactly pull up any trees in his seasonal debut. So there's a massive question mark hanging over him.
Except his height.
He's 16'3", you know. Stand into him, Aidan. Stand into him, Aidan Coleman. You'll see he's 16'3". Why are they making such a thing about this? Like, don't worry about it, Aidan. Okay, Francesca was saying he's not that big. Lydia Hislop said didn't do well over the winter. That's opinions. It doesn't really matter. Is the horse a Group 1 winner? Yes. Was he an unbeaten 2-year-old European champion juvenile? Yes. Can he bounce back from the Guineas? I think he can.
I think, yes.
But let the horse do the talking.
I really fancy him. I thought, you know, was it like 6-7 to 1 on the Monday after the Guineas? That, you know, missed the boat now. That you'd love to get involved at that price. he's probably down to more realistic price now. Is he in around threes? Is he? You tell me.
Yeah.
That's probably more realistic, but that could look. I wouldn't be surprised if that looked a very big price on the day.
I'm kicking myself, and it's again, this is just a missed opportunity, and a missed opportunity out of arrogance and pure greed. I really thought he was going to drift out to 10-1. I actually have a feeling.
Yeah, it's like anything. He was going to go two ways, wasn't it? He was going to keep going out, or else he was going to come right back in. And I love the horse. I really like. Even if it's not the Derby, I think we haven't seen the last of him by a long way.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. And just looking at the time form figures for the Derby market, like City of Troy looms large over it. Like he towers over everything in that race. Now he's got to bounce back, and there's no question about that. But
it's funny. I'd fancy him less for the Derby if he finished third or fourth in the Guineas.
Well, if he finished third or fourth in the Guineas, that would be a clear indication he is not trained on.
Yeah, then he'd be like a Pinatubo-esque or Too Darn Hot or something like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
He's a native trail. It's like, oh, you were brilliant as two, but now everyone's caught up to you. That's what would happen there. Yeah, but that's not what happened. He did an Auguste Rodin. The thing I would say that would worry me a little bit about him is, in my little mind, as Oisin Murphy is famous for saying, in my own little mind, I really didn't fancy Auguste Rodin for the 2000 Guineas, because I thought, look, he's a proper middle distance horse. It's one thing to win a Group 1 over a mile when you're a 2-year-old on bad ground. It's a whole other kettle of fish to go and win a Guineas. So I wasn't surprised he was beaten. I was disappointed that he was beaten.
But he never turned up at all for the Guineas, did he? You know, similar kind of thing. If you finish third or fourth,
instantly my mind went, no, but he's got no chance in the Derby. Like, there is no way in 28 days' time that horse is going to turn around a last place finish in the Guineas and go and win the Derby. I think he had to go back to 1992 for the last horse to do that. Peter Chapelheim with Dr. Devious, was it? Maybe that's one that's ringing around in my brain. Let us know in the comments if I'm right about that, and if I'm not, call me an idiot. Call me an idiot anyway, probably. But he's done it before. And look, Aidan got Luxembourg to bounce back from a disappointing comeback last year to go and win the Tattersalls Gold Cup. Disappointing comeback in the Royal Whip to go and win the Irish Champion Stakes the year before. Yeah. The guy's a genius. He can get horses to come back. But it just seems like all of these Aidan O'Brien horses desperately need their first run of the season, except Los Angeles. He didn't need his first run of the season. He's gone and won. And if you look at how...
The later into the spring, early summer we go, the less that will affect... Look, I'm sure it's to do with the winter we had and the weather and getting on grass and all that kind of stuff. Of course they're going to be behind. But the further it goes to the winter, the more work they will have clocked up at home, and the less of an effect not having a run will... should be calculated into what you're betting or whatever.
That's something I haven't heard mentioned too many times, if at all, in fact. It has been a dreadfully wet time. We're going around in suntans now after the last few days, which is fantastic, or maybe sunburn, depending on your...
It's back raining, isn't it?
Lashing rain today, again. And even though Aidan O'Brien at Ballydoyle has got access to world-class facilities, probably the best facilities, bar Charlie Appleby at Godolphin, they would have the two best training setups in the world. Even with those great training setups, it doesn't matter if the weather is awful. You still can't get proper work into your horses. We'll talk a little bit more about the French 2000 Guineas later on. But the comments Aidan O'Brien was making about Henry Longfellow, who's still a very exciting horse, you'd think he was running in a listed race at the Curragh in April. Like, it's just, it's a quiet little soft run. Like, he was properly emphasizing he's going to need this and he will improve for it. Like, whatever he does is a bonus, basically. I'm paraphrasing. This isn't the Aidan O'Brien that we're used to. We're used to St. Mark's Basilica coming out and winning the French 2000 Guineas and going on to the French Derby. We're used to, he's won more Guineas than any trainer in the history of racing. Not just of the ones now. In the history of the sport, no one's won the first classic of the season more than Aidan O'Brien. So something has changed, and I think it's the weather.
100%, because however he prepared all those horses over the last few years, he would not have been able to do that this year. And that's why they look fresh. They're just genuinely just going in, needing to run and kind of running the races a little bit backwards. And the further, as I say, the further we get into the season, the less that I think in the next week or so that shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah,
because they're going to have more work. They're going to probably been on the grass the last few weeks, and they're just in work longer, so they'll be.
This is something we can take advantage of, though. This is something we can use to take Geoff Banks' money, because they're going to underestimate horses that have bombed out first time out. Look at what
We've
happened.
only
with
got a week or
Capulet.
two's window because people,
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a limited enough window to be able to take full advantage of this. But I think Capulet's a good example. He ran to 106p on his comeback at Southwell on the all-weather. He's 124 plus according to Timeform at Chester. Euphoric, who was second to Los Angeles yesterday in the Derrenstown Stud Derby Trial. Apologies, the Cashel Palace Hotel Derby Trial. Derrenstown was still stuck in my head. Euphoric ran to 106 when he was beaten by Bremen in Cork on his comeback. He's jumped to 117 to be second to Los Angeles and comprehensively turned the tables on Donegal O'Brien's horse. Yeah. Ortelius improved £7 from his first run to his second. Illinois was beaten in Lingfield, but he's improved £11 according to Timeform's ratings from his first run in the Ballysacks to the Lingfield Derby Trial. Yeah. So all these O'Brien 3-year-olds, the good ones, they are improving from each run to run. Los Angeles being able to come out and win first time up, given that Wayne Lorden was saying afterwards he's a very lazy horse at home, I think this bodes really, really well for him. Yeah, true enough. But he's been given a Timeform rating for Epsom right now of 120p, which puts him massively behind City of Troy on 135. Henry Longfellow won't run in this race. The two Godolphin horses, they're pretty high in the rankings, but Arabian Crown, 126p. He's only got to improve £6 on Timeform. And I would imagine Los Angeles will improve massively.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. And I like his attitude. He seemed to go about it the right way, didn't he? And he just looked pretty okay. He's
also got the right temperament, and he's very well balanced. I mean, based on what you're seeing with how he's traveling through his races, he shouldn't have any issue with the undulations and cambers of Epsom.
No.
And his temperament would handle the day as well. I like him an awful lot.
On a 20-1.
Man, what an idiot. Yeah. What a dumbo. I'm blaming Adam Mills for this. What, that boat? You're going to be back that boat from France. Oh, man. This fella, I couldn't bring myself to pull the trigger. You can get 8-1 with Geoff Banks Bet about Los Angeles, but let's find out about some of the other horses. Just very briefly on Euphoric, I'd imagine he's going to be a pretty decent group performer as the season goes on. Don't know if he's Group 1 class, but he could certainly win a Group 2 or a Group 3.
Yeah, and connections. I wouldn't rule him out doing. He's at least Group 2, Group 3, isn't he? You could see him in one of those later Group 1s in the season. You wouldn't know, would you?
I think there's a few of these
worth following. If you had him in a 10 to follower, that you'd be pretty happy to have him, wouldn't you?
You would be, and I think there's going to be a few of these Aidan O'Brien horses. There's been some speculation on social media that Aidan O'Brien's 3-year-old crop is rubbish. I don't think that's the case at all, and I think he's going to be tearing it up in some of these group races in a little bit. But we'll move on to the Lingfield Derby Trial and get Aidan's thoughts on Ambiente Friendly, who was really, really good. The 2019 winner of this for Coolmore, Anthony Van Dyke, went on to go and win the Derby in 2021. Adair was second for Godolphin. He went on to go and win under a terrific ride. But only 5 horses since the year 2000 who've run in the Lingfield Derby Trial have managed to even place at Epsom. So those two can kind of give you a false positive in terms of what this race can do. That being said, this winner was very, very impressive, Aidan.
Very impressive. But another horse, I was at Newmarket today, he ran, took a big step forward, struggling to get on the grass. James Fanshawe, instead of like galloping him more, just brought him up to Newmarket to run. Why not? And stepped forward massively, didn't he?
Big time.
Massively. It goes to show what a benefit of a run can do. Which is what we talked about a second ago with Aidan O'Brien, isn't it? But yeah, that was very impressive. And if you watch him at the line, he hit the line so strong. So strong. You know, I wouldn't put anyone off him in a derby, you know, whether he's going to win a derby, I'm not. But if someone had, I wouldn't be able to have an argument and put someone off him being competitive in a derby, that horse, after last week's performance.
So if you wanted to be hypercritical about him, because he was 100-1 for this race before the Lingfield Derby Trial, if you wanted to be hypercritical about him, is stamina a bit of an issue with him? He's by Glen Eagles, his dam won over 10 furlongs. Is there a slight doubt about a mile 4?
Of course, yeah, like there probably is, isn't there? But I just love the way. Like, I'm only going on Saturday's performance as a trial. He couldn't have done it any easier. Like if Illinois had done that, he'd be 1-4 for the Derby, wouldn't he? Like literally, you know.
City of who?
Yeah, exact. So he was just very impressive. But yeah, you could say has his form. It's a massive jump up in anything we've probably seen before with him, but he probably is an improving horse at the same time.
it'd be great for James Francho as well. He's never won a British Classic. He has won a Classic, the Irish St. Ledger, back in 2000. But
he's had some good horses over the years, hasn't he?
He's had some great horses. Soviet Song is probably one of my favorites.
Yeah,
but it would be brilliant for him if he can do it.
Yeah, nice man.
Yeah, very much so. And it is also a little bit refreshing that we're stepping outside of the Ballydoyle Godolphin superpower axis, the John Thady Gosden axis, and we've got somebody else who's come in with a proper contender. How highly do you rate him for Epsom right now?
He's probably going to find one or two too good for him, I think. But I'd be confident on watching what he did the last day that he will run a very good race and will give you a run for your money.
I think if he gets this ground, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate with the stamina question, because that's a mile 3.5 furlongs and he's not stopping at the line. And he's a really impressive winner.
I don't think stamina is an issue for him. I can see what you're saying through pedigree, and on Saturday morning, I would have probably really bought into that argument. But now that he's kind of been there and done it, it's hard to say he won't stay a mile and 4 at Epsom.
Yeah,
whether that was good enough is another thing. So he could get down and look like he's not going to stay, but it's just the fact that the other horses are going to be better.
Yeah, Aidan was on the Racing Post's The Morning Post on Saturday morning, which is the closest thing we have to the morning line. It's a really good show.
Good fun,
and you're excellent on it. It's great fun. I really enjoy that show. The ones that the Paul Keeley has hosted, I like Dave Orton a lot. I think he's very, very good. But the ones that Paul Keeley have hosted they've been.
I haven't done one with Paul. He's been on it. I think, with me, isn't he? Has he been on it? No, he hasn't.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sure I've seen
he has been. Yeah, he has been. Yeah, it was a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, but no, they're good fun shows, those on Saturday mornings, racingpost.com.
10 o'clock.
Why am I doing a promotion for the Racing Post?
There you go. You can
subscribe now to the Final Furlong Podcast on YouTube.
Yeah.
But listen, if you do like this horse, Ambiente Friendly, and he was one of the first I drew a line under because beaten, well held on his seasonal comeback. He's by Glen Eagles. This fella's not going to stay. That was my genius assessment of the race, and then he goes and absolutely bolts up.
And he was back, wasn't he?
He was very well supported. Yeah, he was very, very well supported.
Which I found strange because I was wondering, what are they supporting him on? It must have been homework.
It has to have been.
Must have been homework. It's the only angle I could see, because as you say, the pedigree, etc. His first run would have been, not jumping out off the page at you, would it?
No, it wouldn't have been. I don't mean this with any disrespect whatsoever, but if we're talking about two horses who are 8-1, who have both won Derby trials, one's visually more impressive than the other, why are you not saying Ambiente Friendly is the Derby winner, Emmett? Los Angeles is trained by Aidan O'Brien. Ambiente Friendly is trained by James Francho. They're both very talented trainers, but one has an incredible record of winning the Derby and rarely misses when he sets his sights on that Epsom target. James hasn't done it yet. That would be the defining factor for me.
But if you look at it in strike rates, Aidan O'Brien's got a 9% strike rate in the Derby, is it?
You trying to say that he carpet bombs the Derby with multiple horses?
No, but a couple of the years gone by, there was probably several runners, but Serpentine ended up winning, didn't he? Wings of Eagles.
Well, you could twist it and say High Chaparral, Serpentine, Wings of Eagles, Anthony Van Dyke, Ruler of the World, all won the Derby as not Aidan O'Brien first strings, but that would actually be to Los Angeles' advantage, because assuming City of Troy lines up, and there's no reason to think that he won't, Ryan Moore will be riding him. Ryan Moore's not getting off City of Troy. That's not a hope of that happening.
Yeah.
Which means either Oisin Murphy comes in for the ride, or I would imagine multiple British Classic winning jockey Wayne Lordan will keep the ride. And it just proves that just because he's going to be Aidan's second string doesn't mean he can't win it.
No, I'd be quite happy. If City of Troy lines up, he's obviously going to be their first string, isn't he? So it wouldn't bother me who is on the other horse. I would imagine it'd be Wayne, but
I would think so.
It doesn't matter.
I would think so.
Probably whoever's their next best, which would be best horse Wayne will ride, which I'd imagine would probably be him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, Shamie Heffernan, Porrick Beggy, Emmett McNamara, they've all gone to Epsom. They've all won for Aidan O'Brien. Yeah. It's not going to be a problem. And as I said, I'm pretty sure Oisin Murphy might be available as well if for some reason Wayne isn't. But I hope Wayne's on board, because I like Oisin an awful lot, but I hope Wayne's on board because that was a horrible fall he got in the Irish Derby last year in San Antonio. And it took him out for that was a brutal comeback. And he had a terrific weekend. He's a great jockey and already a multiple classic.
He's been a great jockey for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, even back in the day with Watchman days, you could set your watch by him. Pardon the pun. But if you fancy Ambiente Friendly, there is one bookmaker who is going industry best price 10-1. Everybody else has gone 8s. I think there might be one other bookmaker who's going 10s, but never mind them. They don't even get to let you have like £2 on. Geoff Banks Bet. I'm sure, like, gamble responsibly and, you know,
we'll take your bet.
We'll take your money. Exactly. Yeah. If you sign up using the promo code FFP500, not only will you be in line to get 10% of your net losses back within the first month, up to £500, getting your own losses back. Happy days. But you can also get 10-1 about James Franco Source Ambiente Friendly. geoffbanks.bet right now. Sign up, get involved, and best of luck to you. Hidden Law in Chester. This was desperate stuff, Aidan, because he was devastatingly impressive. He would have been at least second favourite for the Derby on the back of that, but unfortunately what happened. Why did it happen, though?
Oh, sure, just these things happen. You know, you're going on about, you know, Wayne getting the fall in the Derby last year. It's the same thing. You know, there's obviously something has just gone wrong there, and it just happened to come out on national television. Oh, it was so sad, wasn't it? It was hard watching, but obviously Richard Hoyles did a good job, didn't he?
Do you know what? I was live on TalkSport covering it, and I had to react to it in real time, so I didn't hear Richard's commentary. I'm sure he handled it brilliantly.
Yeah,
I found it a difficult race to rewatch since, because
I haven't rewatched it. I watched it once, and like it's hard to even go back and watch it and say how impressive he was in that, because you just think it's all in vain, isn't it? The poor animal. But these things do happen, unfortunately. It doesn't make it any easier or less sad, but yeah,
it does kind of prove to you, though, that racehorses they're big, powerful creatures. You've been severely injured by racehorses in the past. They can do that to humans.
Yeah,
but they are also very fragile in their own right.
Oh, of course, yeah. Like, they're athletes, aren't they? And highly strong, highly tuned athletes, and that's what happens. But you know, I heard people saying about the road and all that. I was thinking, I don't know how many runners were at Chester last week and how many horses went over that road.
And they were all fine.
You know, it happens all the time. I wouldn't read anything to do with the road crossing or whatever. It just happened. I think it would have happened if there was no road crossing. It was just a weakness that came out on the day. But being by Godolphin, he would have been x-rayed to within an inch of his life, you know, in times gone by and all that. So it would have just been one of them freak things. It's just a false step or a bit of weight in the wrong area or whatever. It's just, as I say, it was terribly sad anyway. And that's, you know, it's kind of it, isn't it?
I was desperate. Yeah. It was just shocking. Samantha Martin gave me a statistic a couple of years ago. I think it's 67% of equine fatalities happen in a field. And her overall point is when people are, you know, when Animal Rising and all the others are trying to campaign and say, oh, horse racing's cruel, the vast majority of equine fatality deaths, they just happen in a field with a horse minding its own business.
Or, like, say, as we said, Chishkin in the stable, you know, having a little role.
Oh,
yeah, things like that. You know,
cast in his box, just a random thing. They need to be looked after. They need human intervention to make sure that they're protected and that they're safe and all that. But they can be a little bit fragile. What did you make of the two Ballydoyle horses in behind? Agenda, in particular, I thought ran a really big race. Yeah,
it looked like might do it off the bend, didn't it? And then the winner ultimately ran out. And impressive, but. Yeah, again, good runs. Are they future stars? I'd like to have seen a little bit more.
Yeah, I think Grosvenor Square is not one to give up on.
No, I wouldn't give up on either of them as group horses, but whether they're classic horses or, you know, they might turn into next year's cup horses or something like that. You know, it's they're promising, but are they going to win a classic? You could see him running well in an Irish Derby or something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I was just thinking, if Los Angeles or City of Troy win the Irish Derby, one of these horses is going to be the one staying on to finish second or third. As Aidan O'Brien has another 1, 2, 3.
That's the kind of reason I have it. And then you never know, like, they might do a Charlie Appleby and go to some of those big turf races in America.
Yeah.
And probably...
Yeah, well, I would imagine there's a, you know, Coolmore or no fools. And I would imagine that they're looking at what Godolphin are doing. It's actually a little bit alarming. I don't think there's a whole lot being talked about in this regard. Yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot being talked about in the fact that Godolphin are clearly downsizing. Now, how much this downsizing is going to be, I don't know, but they've put 2 yards on the market, and there's a redundancy program in place at Side Bin Saror. So Bin Saror is clearly downsizing massively. It appears as though Godolphin are as well. And this all coincides with the fact that they're opening a satellite yard in America, and Rebels Romance and a number of other proper Group 1 performers, recent Group 1 performers, are going to be housed over there and race in America and not race in the UK. And that's worrying for British racing. Very worrying.
It is, when the amount of money Sheikh Mohammed puts into horse racing in the UK, or everywhere really, but obviously the UK is like, those guys are keeping it afloat nearly, aren't they?
Definitely be keeping Newmarket afloat for sure.
Yeah.
If he takes a step back, I know that there are issues with Sheikh Mohammed. Believe me, we've talked about them before. But if he goes, that's a major blow to British racing. Yeah. I would keep the faith with Grosvenor Square, and I think Agenda's going to win a nice group race this season.
Yeah.
And you're right, he did look the winner until poor old Hidden Law.
Just
came to a sorry end. Sympathies to everybody involved with the horse, and thoughts with the Godolphin team. They had a really good one there. They've got 2 more for the Derby that I think will be very, very interesting. We can talk a bit more about them a little bit later on. A Justify, who gets beaten on his seasonal debut, steps up in trip, goes and wins. 2 of those horses did that for Aidan O'Brien over the weekend. Capulet was one of them. Ostilius won the final race at Leopardstown on Sunday as well. This will all bode very well for City of Troy for Aidan O'Brien. But let's talk about Capulet first of all. What did you make of him?
Oh, I was very impressed with Capulet, and it is interesting because the thing with City of Troy, one of the kind of the analysis afterwards was justifies as 3-year-olds they don't train on, or they don't stay, or everything was just kind of knocking Justify as anything other than a 2-year-old sire, basically, wasn't it? And here we go a week later, and we have some good hard evidence that Justify has a chance as a 3-year-old sire.
Well, it turns out these Justifies do train on.
You can't keep a good man down, is what they say, isn't it?
True.
I think, and as you say, look at Capulet when he ran at Chelmsford, wasn't it?
Yeah.
He was,
it's Chelmsford.
He was just behind Richard Hughes' horse. The name escapes me. Bracken's Laugh or something. There.
Yeah, he was behind Los Angeles in France as well.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is the step up from its Chelmsford run.
Yeah.
So he's improved quite a lot in one run. The Justify City of Troy kind of angle. Aidan O'Brien's horse is just needing a run. He's kind of the flag bearer for that, isn't he?
Like, Capulet would have been a very difficult horse to fancy if you just looked at the form logically, because you could argue that as a 2-year-old he didn't really progress that much. He wins first time up with a pretty good performance in a Dundalk All-Weather Maiden, and then he's not beaten far by Diego Velasquez, who the hype was out that horse was a superstar. Now he's been sent off 17-1 on a 2,000 guineas in France. I wouldn't be giving up on him. I thought he ran very, very well. And again, Aidan was emphasizing these horses are going to need their first run of the season. So he's not one I'd be giving up on at all. And he cost an absolute 2 million, 2.1 million. He had a very good trip to
the French press, didn't he? He was kind of, there was every excuse for him. There's no excuse for him really other than needing to run or whatever Aidan said to run bad on how the race panned out.
Yeah, Sumion had given him he gave him every chance, but he just
very straightforward
that you would expect. I also don't think the trip would have suited him. I think he's going to need further.
He looks like that.
Anyway, although we'll come to the French 2,000 guineas in a second. But you could argue, look, he didn't really progress from debut, despite the fact that he was placed in a couple of group races behind Diego Velasquez and Ghostwriter. But then he goes to the all-weather at Chelmsford and gets pretty much stuffed as an odds-on favourite. So how is he going to turn the form around? It's Aidan O'Brien, lads. This is what he does. These horses just improve. And
I think he's
Aidan O'Brien's got some
really
record at Chester as well. This was a good performance. I would imagine that Capulet might not be Group 1 class, but he's certainly capable of being very heavily involved in a King Edward VII Stakes at Royal Ascot, or maybe being on the boat to France for the Grand Prix de Paris.
Yeah, I heard the second horse is going to Royal Ascot, and they think highly of that. So, if you're going along them lines, there's not much between them now on 2 runs, those two. And you have to like Capulet, really. Whether he's, again, probably like a couple of the others over the weekend, whether they're going to be their Group 1 performers of the year. Probably not in the mainstream Group 1s in the UK and Ireland, but maybe, they're probably not. Might find 1 or 2 too good for them and then, but they're going to be placed in all those races, aren't they?
Could be. I wonder, is he another one that they might just go to America for better ground and softer touches in Grade 1 company?
That's the way I would look at it, really. I don't know. Is he unless he improves again? This is the other thing. They're improving from one run to another. That doesn't mean they're stopped their improvement, and that's their ability for the rest of the season. They could. Who knows? Justifies might come into only improve at 4 into 5. You don't know.
And these Justifies don't train on at all. 2 of them go and bolt up over the weekend. I'm going to get Aidan's thoughts on who he thinks is the best bet for the Derby in a few minutes. But first of all, we're going to turn our attention to the Fillies Classic trials with a view to the Oaks. Ylang Ylang heads the betting with Geoff Banks Bet at 9-4 after her 4th place finish in the Newmarket 1,000 guineas, or should I say 1,000 guineas, because it's the original and still the best. But the Oaks trial at Lingfield was won by Rafe Beckett's You Got To Me with a bold front-running ride from Hector Crouch. Ryan Moore was probably really annoyed with how this race panned out. There wasn't really a whole lot he could do about it. Ruby's a Red didn't seem to like the undulations of Lingfield very early on in the race, and she was finishing very, very fast towards the end. She's a shorter price for the Oaks than the winner. She's a 9-1 shot with Geoff Banks Bet, 16-1 about You Got To Me. Does that betting make sense to you, Aidan Coleman?
I suppose if you're going on ability, I think she is better than the winner. The worry would be how she probably didn't look to handle Lingfield that well. So she needs to use all the experience she got on Saturday and bring it to Epsom. If you could guarantee that she was going to handle Epsom, you can't say she doesn't have a very good chance. But I said it last time, Ylang Ylang is the Lightly Oaks winner. And I don't think we've seen anything over the weekend to make me change my opinion. Basically, it's my Oaks rundown at the moment.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it is pretty simple. Ylang Ylang wins. We'll see what happens in the Musadora. Maybe something will
we've got another couple to go. But I think on that race, the race on Saturday was very interesting. One had Philly had it all her own way, and it worked out perfectly. And you can't take anything away from her. She was a good, worthy winner on the day, and the other didn't seem to handle the track, and a bit of everything just didn't really go her way. And she still nearly won, so she's probably done well to nearly get there. And she was fast finishing. So if you could guarantee she'd handle Epsom, as I say, you'd see her in the money, wouldn't you? But,
yeah, if you knew for a fact she's going to like the undulations of Epsom, then that's great. The problem is Lingfield is almost a replica of Epsom.
Yeah.
So if she hasn't handled it in the Lingfield Oaks, how is she going to handle it? It's
all experience, isn't it?
That's going to. It's all experience. And look, the headline about her is she's an absolute stone cold solid moral to go and win a maiden somewhere. Clearly, Ruby's a Red is kind of extraordinary that she's still a maiden. She's also another example of an Aidan O'Brien trained 3-year-old who's improving with each run. But her pedigree has her as a full sister to Found, Breeders' Cup Turf, and Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe winner. Obviously, a wonderful racehorse for Aidan O'Brien. Unfortunately, only had one fall. She's been very, very difficult to get pregnant. I think she's still at Coolmore, and hopefully they'll be able to get her in full again. But it's clearly very tricky for her. She only had Battleground, who was a good horse, but didn't quite go the way he wanted, or they would have wanted. Best in the World, she's a full sister to as well, and she produced Snowfall. And the reason I mention her is because Divinely is also a full sister. And Divinely ran in the Lingfield Oaks trial, was a good 4th in that race, then went to Epsom and was absolutely annihilated by Snowfall, daughter of Best in the World. So which bloodline is Ruby's a Red going to take? Is she going to be Divinely Magical Dream, who were good horses but weren't Group 1 class? Or is she going to be Best in the World, who was good enough to produce Snowfall, who was a dominant winner of the Oaks and a brilliant 3-year-old filly and found?
It's worried that she hasn't won
Slightly.
Yet. Yeah, she needs to start improving. But I think there's a lot of positives from her run on Saturday again. And it was a trial, and obviously they brought her. They know what horses they're bringing where. It's all quite well planned. Maybe they knew she needed more experience at a track like Epsom, i.e. Lingfield, and that's why she ran there and not at, I don't know, somewhere in Ireland or Chester.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point to be made as well. I didn't see a whole lot in that race that would make me go, can't wait to back her at Epsom.
No, I don't think I've seen it. No, I think I'm sticking to Ylang Ylang. I know it's an obvious one, but I think her Oaks, her Guineas run was like the perfect Oaks trial, wasn't it?
Yeah, I hope I sincerely hope she is proper Group 1 class, because it would be great if there's a daughter of Galileo who can give him his 100th Group 1 winner, and then yet another. That would be a Group 1 winner in every single season that Galileo has had horses run for him. And they don't make him like that anymore. So that'd be great if she can do it. He will have other Galileos that can step into the breach for him. But as much as it's impressive the amount of ground she's made up, just be concerned about how she'll handle Epsom. And I wonder if the Irish Oaks might be more her thing.
Is as well.
And that's another great question to point out. It's like not only is she going to be able to improve for this race, and will she handle Epsom better with the benefit of this experience? But is that form even good enough anyway? I think the Group 1 form that Ylang Ylang has as a Group 1 winner as a 2-year-old in Group 1,
is far.
I know how much these Aidan O'Brien horses are improving. Imagine how much Ylang Yalang's going to improve from the 1,000 guineas to the Oaks and going up and trip as well. I'm much more in her camp. Ylang Ylang 9-4 for the Oaks with Geoff Banks Bet. Ruby's a Red 9-1, as we were saying, and You Got to Me is a 16-1 shot. We'll move it on to the Cheshire Oaks. A Seventh Heaven, by the way, did win this race at the Lingfield Oaks for Aidan O'Brien, and then obviously went on to win the Irish Oaks and be a very, very good filly in her own right. But just proceed with caution. Forest Ferry in the Cheshire Oaks. This is a race that Aidan O'Brien's got a very good record in. He got close to winning it. Didn't quite happen for him. Forest Ferry had a little bit too much for Port Ferry. What did you make of the race?
Forest Ferry, she was very impressive considering it was her first run in turf, wasn't it? Second run ever? It was her second run ever, wasn't it? Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very impressive. You'd have to think she's going to be, you'd mark her up again for the performance, I thought. Rafe Beckett just about kicking into gear. There's a lot to like, wasn't there?
Very much so. And Rafe Beckett, I know he doesn't want to be labelled this at all because he's a brilliant trainer with any type of horse, but for some reason he just seems to excel with fillies as well.
He does.
He was very unlucky with Blue Stocking last year. I think if things had gone another way for that horse, they would have got their Group 1 with her, but alas, that's just the way things panned out. Sorry, I don't know why the internet is, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can see Aidan fading out here and there. Maybe it's not happening because sometimes when Trish gets the recording, it turns out to be absolutely perfect. But it's my bloody internet, which I made a big thing a couple of weeks ago about how, I've got Starlink internet now. It's amazing. It's very, very good, but for some reason it's kind of acting up tonight. I don't quite know why. Can Forest Ferry be an Oaks winner, though? Do you think she's of that caliber or class, or should she be heading potentially to Royal Ascot for the Ribblesdale instead?
Royal Ascot, or that's probably the way I'd go with her because lack of experience really. I really liked her though. I just thought I looked back at her run when she won it on the all weather. It was Wolverhampton or something like that, and it looked like a piece of work for her. She was very impressive, and she did well to win the other day. She got up late, didn't she? Showed a good attitude. Again, like I said with the Lingfield Oaks trial, I still haven't seen anything of Ylang Yalang's form run yet. But you could not like what she done.
No. Likeable from both. They can both go on and win group races. Are they Group 1 fillies? Wouldn't rule it out for Rafe Beckett's horse. But I suspect Aidan's one will be a Group 2 winner for sure. But is she Group 1 class? I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
First classics of the season in France, as we turn our attention to the French 1,000 and 2,000 guineas over there.
Where do we start?
This flat game. I love flat racing. It's a lot of fun, Aidan. Obviously, you made your career as a jumps jockey. Seems as though we're able to get stuck into short price favourites who deliver and get the job done at Cheltenham. You can get fancied horses to win at Aintree. And then along comes the flat, 28-1 winner of the 1,000 guineas, massive priced winner of the 2,000 guineas, and 2 big priced winners of the 2 classics in France. Fun times!
Very, very tricky weekend. I always struggle a bit with the French racing, to be fair. But I think the further the season goes, the more predictable it is, isn't it? But this spring has been a nightmare, hasn't it? I think, again, we're just going to blame the weather, aren't we? Some trainers are ahead and some are behind. And yeah, but I don't know, does that work for the French racing? Is that an excuse over there? I suppose it might be an excuse for like content looked like far too fresh and keen, didn't she? And so did and then Henry Longfellow, probably similar, and even though he wasn't keen in that, but as he said, he was very undercooked for that race. But as far as the French horses go, it's hard to make head nor tail of it, isn't it?
It's just nuts. I mean, even André Fabre's 2, for the genius of French training, which of these 2 are the best ones? They're both big prices. Super Cool was a 14-1 shot, who was 18s and 20s before the race. Alcantor, who he took over for the Craven, was backed as though defeat was out of the question. He completely bombs out in that race. Turns up here and finishes 3rd, and you could argue maybe a little bit unlucky with the way the race panned out. I think for Roger Teal, it was definitely unlucky with Dancing Gemini. And they were of the opinion that had the race not been delayed and the downpour of rain that happened beforehand, that things might have worked out a little bit better for them and they might very well have won.
Yeah, I suppose you always take stuff like that with a pinch of salt, because there's probably 15 other people in the field saying the exact same thing, isn't there, Brad, a winner? It's just the way it goes, isn't it? But like, Roger should be very excited and proud. Like, Roger's a good trainer, isn't he? He's done really well over the years with Oxted, and he trains jumpers, flat horses, whatever. He does really well. I think he's got another good horse there. Obviously he's got another good horse there. You don't need me to tell you that. But he had enough time to get there, that horse. You know, he was just held, you know, it just didn't win on the day. It looked to have a good trip round. Dylan gave it, you know, very nice ride. It just didn't win. It just wasn't. How good a races they will work out to be, I don't know. I'd have my doubts. I definitely wouldn't give up on Henry Longfellow. I just thought, I was very worried after 2 or 3, 4 furlongs when Ryan was looking around. How often did you see Ryan looking over his shoulder? Never. He was not happy where he was at that early stage. And it really annoys me, people saying it was the worst ride and like, why did he get boxed in? It's like, he knew he was getting boxed in after 2 furlongs, but he couldn't do anything about it. You don't have a magic wand to get yourself from here to there and have a clear passage. It just doesn't work like that. He could see it happening, but what can he do?
Well, it's also not Frankie Dettori riding in a small novice race at Lingfield where he can yell at inexperienced young riders in front and go, hey, get out of it. And they'll do it because it's Frankie. That's not going to work in a classic.
Yeah.
There was nothing you could do. You could see it unfolding.
In his body language, like, how often do you see Ryan do that in the race? Never. He
Rarely.
knew so soon what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And there was just
it was going to turn into a sprint finish as well, as those French races do.
I think he's really want to mark up Henry Longfellow. I hope people take a dim view of it, because he'll be value on his next run. That's one thing I take. That's the one thing I took from the French 2000 guineas, is stay with Henry Longfellow.
I don't want to give away any or put out any Russian disinformation or misinformation on the Final Furlong podcast. Aidan, Coleman and I would absolutely not want to engage in any such behaviour, like telling you to back Henry Longfellow for the Derby when he was never going for that race in the first place. But I believe Henry Longfellow is being aimed at the St. James's Palace Stakes.
That's going to be a good race, isn't it?
He'll win that.
Yeah, it's going to be a good race.
He's going
to be great value in it, because they're all going to go for the Guineas winner and the Guineas second. and he's going to be probably overlooked from a unpromising first run of the year.
Yeah, and
read into it.
Just
yeah,
like for all that the Godolphin horse was great in the 2000 Guineas, and William Buick, like take what William Buick is saying very, very seriously. That miler having that turn of foot, that he's never ridden a horse like that before. I take all of that stuff very, very seriously. Henry Longfellow will beat him at Royal Ascot. He will step forward massively from this.
I know, even for the run, the occasion, and just how the race was ran, I think he can rank him up massively. I think he whether he wins or not, he's going to be great value because he's going to be, I don't know what price he's going to be for St James's Palace, but he's get it up. You're the man.
He's going to be at least 4-1. I'm going to take a wild guess right now and say that somebody's going 4s. And I think you should be getting bigger than that, by the way. Geoff Banks Bet. Can we get a bit of, what do we want, Aidan? 10-1.
10-1, yeah, 10-1. Beating out his side first run of the year, hasn't trained on everything yet.
He's a Dubawi, he hasn't trained on. Aidan can't train them Dubawis.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a wild guess he's 4s.
I'd guess about 4s. It sounds logical enough.
Oh my God. He is 4-1 across the board. That's what most people are doing. There are 2 firms who are going 5-1. Neither of them I can get a bet on with. And one is going 6-1. Geoff, can you follow Ed Nicholson in there, please, and give us 6-1 about Henry Longfellow in the St James's Palace Stakes at Geoff Banks Bet, please. Every Final Furlong podcast listener who likes that horse is going to flood you and get stuck in. And if it turns out Notable Speech is just an absolute machine, or Rosalind improves and going around a bend, brings out more improvement from him, and he turns the form around, and Henry Longfellow can't quite get there, then we'll just have to take our beating. But 6-1.
I'd prefer to take my beating on 6-1 on him than a shorter price than the other two. The value is unquestionably with him, isn't it?
Absolutely it is. And with the way these Aidan O'Brien horses are improving for their first run of the season.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to talk it up too much because I want to get that 6-1, but that's
when is this podcast going out?
It should be going out tonight, all being well.
All right. Okay. So when we log off, I'm going to.
Well, you can do that now. Now that you're,
I don't do a lot.
Retired jockey.
Never really. It doesn't. I don't back a lot of horses, or very, very rarely. The odd time I see something that I think, yeah, that should be. I like a value bet, and that's what I would call a value bet. Well,
I'll get you Geoff Banks's number. You can get onto him. Call the man directly. Never mind the odds compiler team, and I'm sure all the boys in the war room are doing great work. But we'll get you on, and we'll try and get you a bit of that. About 6-1 is insanely big about a horse of that talent.
Well, they've obviously taken a different view than us, which I suppose I can kind of see where they're coming from, but I definitely wouldn't have read it the way they're reading it. Definitely not.
No way. Diego Velasquez, what do you make of him for the rest of the season? French Derby next.
Yeah, I think the 2 furlongs will suit, the extra 2. Yeah, fine. I just thought, I know he'll improve for the run and all that, but he was in the kind of the perfect slot the whole way, that he couldn't run bad, really, if he had any sort of ability in that way that races run. So you can't look fine run, grand, and if he improves, brilliant. And the extra 2 furlongs, all well and good, but he just, as I said, just reading into that run, he couldn't really run bad from where he was positioned in the race.
Consider this, Aidan Coleman, if you will. City of Troy completely blew out in the 2000 Guineas, and yet is the 3-1 favourite to win the Derby. Mm-hmm. Henry Longfellow was beaten 4 lengths on his first run in the French 2000 Guineas, with Aidan O'Brien basically taking out a neon light and telling everybody he needs the run. He's going to improve from it. He needs this run. And he's 6-1 for the St. James's Palace Stakes. Which one makes more appeal?
Oh, well, I just, if you told me, if you went on your thing there and said Henry Longfellow was still 2-1 for the St. James's Palace, I probably wouldn't have questioned it.
Let's go. Geoff Banks, we're coming for your money. I mean, yeah, Geoff, you should.
This is going to make good playback in after the St. James's Palace one way or another, isn't it?
Either you and I look like absolute geniuses or complete dum-dums.
Yeah.
I look like a dum-dum most of the time anyway, so I'm well used to it. But if we're wrong, if we're wrong for having an opinion, then I guess we're wrong. But
yeah,
we're coming for your money, Geoff. Passenger. Jamie Lynch was making a very, very interesting comparison. Fascinating comparison on Sky Sports Racing. He was talking about a Niarchos horse who was sent off 8-1 for the Derby, who was finished 12th in the race, then comes back, lines up at Chester in the Huxley Stakes, wins it, and then goes on to Group 1 glory. But he wasn't talking about Passenger. He was talking about his father, Ulysses.
Ulysses had a couple of good winners over the weekend, didn't he?
He did. He's a terrific sire. Absolutely fantastic sire.
A lot of people wouldn't have that view.
Well, he's not. He should be more popular, but for whatever bizarre reason in European flat racing, there's this emphasis on precocious speed. And that's great, but precocious speed is not going to get you a Derby winner. And I know it didn't with Ulysses, and I know it didn't with Passenger, but it did with Ulysses get you a multiple Group 1 winner. The question is, that was a great piece of analysis from Jamie Lynch, by the way, as well. Can Passenger follow in the hoof prints of his sire, his dad, and do exactly what he did, go and win a boatload of Group 1s as a 4-year-old?
Yeah, I suppose with the right trainer as well, isn't he? For that kind of campaign. And even if you look at his Windsor run last year, he beat a horse that's ran really well in Group 1s in, albeit Australia, but he's got good form there. And if you're going like Michael Stout improver, Sire improver, it'd be hard to go against it. Yeah. You know, I'm kind of taking Jamie Lynch's kind of analysis there, but it's very accurate, and I would be happy to follow on with it.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable that the Niarchos family have a racehorse who can replicate almost identically what the sire did
so far.
And the question is now, can he go and do it? I think he can. Like Israr is a good horse,
isn't he?
Yeah, Israr is a good horse. Regal Reality is not a bad horse at all. He's stayed on to be third. He's a multiple Group winner. I don't know what to make of Hans Andersen. Really, he should have been able to step forward, and maybe that's as good as that horse is. Perhaps I can't really get a handle on him. But Passengers won. He won in an impressive style that I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting the turn of foot that he showed towards the end of the race, and I didn't expect him to be quite as dominant as he was. It's also his first run of the season, and Sir Michael Stout did not have a good season last year. It was one of his worst seasons ever as a trainer, which just made you a little bit nervous for this season. But all of a sudden, they're banging in the winners. They had a nice no-name ever who won a 3-year-old race at Chester. This fella was massively, incredibly well backed in order to go and win his Group 1. And he's gone and done
sign,
it.
Isn't it? From a yard like
Very
that.
good sign, yeah. Racing needs Sir Michael Stout at his best, and we had James Savage on the show last year. He gave this horse a very, very positive mention before his debut, which he looked like a proper... That's why he was sent off 8-1 for the Derby on the back of what he had done in the Wood Ditton. I would have a lot of confidence in this fella for the rest of the season. Can he beat Augusta Rodan in the Prince of Wales Stakes?
It depends if Augusta Rodan pulls up or not.
Yeah, which Augusta Rodan gets out of the bed that day.
Augusta Rodan looks pretty spectacular on certain days, doesn't he? But
and awful on other ones.
He just has a stinker in him, isn't he?
He's either world class or he just doesn't.
No, yeah, there's nothing. Yeah, it's nothing. Yeah, but he's obviously a very, very talented horse.
Yeah, that's shaping up to be a good race. That Prince of Wales Stakes. And
I think so.
Point Lonsdale will probably be headed to Royal Ascot as well. Where he'll be going remains to be seen, but stepped up to a mile 5 for the Ormond Stakes. Can't be too many horses who won the Huxley Stakes the year before over 10 and then stepped up to a mile 5 a year later. But Point Lonsdale would be down the pecking order of the group performers at Aidan O'Brien's yard, but he's a very solid performer and he deserved this win.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he's some very good runs, is he? Like whether he's like going to be a force to be reckoned with in Group 1s over middle distances for the rest of the year, I don't know. See him running well like a Coronation or something. But I think they'll have to go up and trip with him. Definitely an Irish St. Ledger kind of horse. I know they got Criprios as their cup horse, but I think this fella could be probably there with him, couldn't he? He has an Ascot Gold Cup entry, I'd imagine, has he?
I think he does.
I think he does. Yeah, I think I did see he has. But all those cup races, I think they'll have to be on the agenda, because I think last year proved that he probably just falls a bit short of the other Group 1s.
Yeah, this fellow was entered in the sales last year, and it was a couple of them that Coolmore had entered. Aesop Fables was one, and they pulled them. Obviously, Aesop Fables is still there. They're training him for the King's Stand. He'll need to improve for that. But he ran a massive race at the Breeders' Cup, and there's clearly talent there. This fellow was at the sales, and like Aesop Fables, there was a couple that they just withdrew.
The fact that they were entered in the first place is a little bit... Ooh.
Exactly. And I think overall he is going to have a very big role to play this season, but he's going to have a very big role to play as a pacemaker, or a very big role in helping races to be run at a really true run pace. And then it's a case of, well, what do you do? Like, do you stay there like you did in the Irish Champion Stakes? Do you run a big race like you did in Dubai? I think that's what they'll be doing with him more so than going for a Gold Cup. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I see what you. Probably. Yeah. It's either that or they make a cup horse out of him, isn't it? It's one or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, he either becomes Broom, or they just use him.
Yeah,
if he can win one, great, but he's probably going to tow Auguste Rodin, Luxembourg, City of Troy later in the season. Those kind of horses into those big middle distance races. I think that's what they might use him for more so. Yeah. And there was a couple of falsely run races last year that could need, like, you can't give him an easy lead. If it's a 4-runner eclipse and he bowls off in front, you can't just let him go.
Out, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Briefly on Great Generation, this is a pretty emotional performance with the association this horse had with Stefano.
Stefano, yeah. It was a good ride as well, wasn't it?
Great ride from Marco.
Out of fire, yeah. Yeah, very good run, yeah. And like, that horse wins, doesn't he? He likes to win. He's got a great win strike rate. Yeah, I know it was good, and as you say, with connections and the relation with Stefano Churchy's, a bit more poignant as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Watching the new version of the Morning Line, the Morning Post, was it Graham Rodway was he the one who said that Holly Doyle desperately wanted to be
he said the Newmarket connection said that's where she wanted to be, to ride him. It was a great tip in itself, wasn't it?
It was fantastic. I'm pretty sure she was about 6-1 when he was saying that, because all the money was all for Remarque. Oh, and she was so far clear on ratings.
That was my nap.
Well,
I knew after a furlong, put it that way.
RPRs, time form, pro form, they would have, I'm pretty sure pro form, we're all saying this is the horse that's going to take all the beating. And she would have been, but clearly she just needed the run.
Was just too keen as well. You can't be keen and win races at any level. Like, she had solid Group 1, 3 solid Group 1 bits of form. 1, you could say it might have been a bit of a fluke or whatever, but 3, you're thinking, yeah, she's going to turn up. And
that keenness and freshness angle is something we should just very briefly touch on with content in the French 1000 Guineas. I'm not sure if we emphasized it enough. She's pulled really hard, but that's something Aidan O'Brien was talking about in his stable tour before the season, and he was mentioning in the build up to this race as well that she can be quite hard on herself in races, and that's just how she's run first time up as well.
Especially being a bit fresh and going there like Aidan O'Brien horses are going. Some horses undercooked can go two ways. They're either a bit sluggish and a bit lethargic because they're not the finely tuned athletes as you would expect them to be, or else they're the opposite, one or the other, and she obviously fell under the latter. And
Romantic Style had no chance from that draw.
No chance, yeah, because she obviously, William got her out and she ran too keen for too long. He had no other option really on the time, didn't he? He was either get out and do that or drop in and be last, and definitely wouldn't have won doing that. No. So no, her race was over when the draw was done on Thursday or Friday or whatever.
Well, big week for Godolphin because they're going to have a number of contenders at York. We're covering all 3 days live. I'm presenting it all on Racing Live on TalkSport 2 for the York Dante Festival. So hopefully you can join us there. If you're out and about, if you're at work and you can't watch ITV, come along to Racing Live on TalkSport 2. Louis Stewart, Lizzie Kelly, and myself will guide you through and have some fun. We're going to see their latest Derby contender, Ancient Wisdom and Arabian Crown, towards the top of the market in the Dante, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Yeah, because you said earlier you're going to ask for a Derby horse for me.
Yes.
I'm going to wait till after they run.
Oh.
It's unfair to say that because one of them going bolt up. Like at this moment in time, I still would be heavily on City of Troy. Yeah, really would.
Okay.
Really would. But I would like to see what the Dante brings up. I love the Dante as a trial. For maybe not necessarily always a Derby, but for a racehorse, it's you got Roaring Lions and all them good horses over the years have won. I just really like the race.
It's a cracking race, and it's not one that Aidan O'Brien has the best record in, but he has run horses like Japan and Continuous who have placed in the race and then gone on to Group 1 success afterwards. But just I think Chief Little Rock is probably going to be his number one contender. Diego Velasquez has an entry, but there's no way he's turning up to that. Yeah, but it's just intriguing that he was in there. Maybe they thought if the ground wasn't going to suit a Perry Longchamp or something that they could have done an about turn and put him into the Dante if they needed to. So clearly they felt that he was going to need the run. I think that's the point I'd make. But City of Troy, I can see it. I think that's why the market has bounced back in his favor so much. First of all, we've only got 41 horses in the race, which is that's alarming. That's all that's in the bloody Derby, and there's 41 horses at this stage.
It's not just jump racing that's lacking quality horses, is it?
No, it's not. And that's one of the things that would worry me about those Godolphin horses going to America. How are we going to get full field sizes for these races? But they've got to do what's best for them, and they've got to do what's best for those horses. And racing in America clearly is going to suit those horses better than certainly Rebels Romance would be better suited to American racing than European. But City of Troy towers over the field in his 2-year-old form.
Yeah.
And Auguste Rodin did bounce back from a third last finish in the 2000 Guineas last year. Maybe City of Troy can go and do it.
Improving for a run.
It is actually the same thing. It really is the same thing all over again. 28 days from the 2000 Guineas to the Derby, third last place finish, having been sent off a short price favourite for it. Now can you go and bounce back in the Derby?
Yeah.
History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And it's rhyming with City of Troy. The Derby is a tale of two cities. Are you with City of Troy or are you with the city of Los Angeles? I'm with Los Angeles, but I would not rule out City of Troy at all.
I think with the likes of Los Angeles, you're definitely going to get some run for your money. Whereas City of Troy, I think it's going to be all duck or no dinner, basically.
Yeah, and I kind of a low key worry about his run style because Ancient Wisdom we'll see in the Dante. But Arabian Crown wants to be on the front end. And the way City of Troy has been ridden in the past is on the front end. So can you win a mile 4 Derby with two high-class horses going at each other that early on? And there's going to be something else up there in the pace as well.
There's always a pacemaker in it as well, the Derby usually, isn't there?
Yeah, something will go forward. And Ancient Wisdom wants to go forward. City of Troy wants to go forward.
Yeah,
it's going to be a strong gallop. That's going to make it a proper stamina test, which will really suit Los Angeles.
Troy will go forward in this Derby. I think it will either follow Ancient Wisdom or a pacemaker they have in.
I think they'll have to change.
Yeah,
then how does he adapt to that?
Oh, he'll be fine. No problem. I don't think it'll be an issue.
Okay,
it'll be an issue. Okay. Yeah, more than likely follows horses up to gallop every day. Probably follows in his work.
I'll make a very quick mention for one more horse to follow for the rest of the season. Aidan O'Brien had a great day at Leopardstown.
I know what you're going to say, I bet.
Which one?
Highbury.
Yes!
Yeah. He was impressive. Yeah, I thought of one horse of the weekend that won a maiden or whatever. He was very impressive.
Well, before the race, I was thinking if this guy is good, he might do a Bondi Beach, but hopefully it won't work out the way it did for Bondi Beach. So he went from the Captain Dara Fitzpatrick Memorial to be second in the St. Ledger, but then have the race given to him in the steward's room after an
then taken off again. Bye.
And then a couple of weeks later, it's given back to Simple Verse. Yeah, but fair play to Scobie. He rode his race and then just outfoxed Andreazzini in the steward's room and ended up being given the race. So we got paid on the day. I wouldn't be surprised if Highbury is a Group 1 performer. That was a really impressive performance.
Very good. Again, he needs to step up in grade to kind of prove it, but he was eye-catching at the weekend, I thought.
Yeah, he's got a pretty mixed record with the horses he's run in that race over the years. Bondi Beach would probably be the best of them. but it's a race they've dominated over the years. They have run decent horses in it. They're not all great, but this is one of the reasons why I think that Aidan O'Brien is going to be a real force in these mile 4, mile 2, Group 1s, but also particularly those Group 2s and Group 3s. I think he's going to clean up at Royal Ascot, as he normally does, but particularly
you heard it here first.
The 7th.
Emmett Kennedy says Aidan O'Brien's going to be a real force. Bloody well.
Breaking news! Scoop! Scoop, everybody! Yes, Aidan O'Brien's a guy to follow. I tell you, he's going places. Queen's Vase and the King out of the 7 Stakes. He will go very, very close to winning those, if not just take them both, because there's so much talent there. And I think this fella's going to be up there with them. He might end up being a St. Ledger winner.
Yeah. There's a lot to like about his performance yesterday. A lot to like.
€650,000 Galileo, and he's on the scoreboard. I think he's a very, very nice horse for the rest of the season. Highbury, remember the name. There's a couple of good ones over the weekend, but that was a really, really impressive performance in that race. Who was your standout performer from the last few days?
Do you know, the standout performer probably was the horse that won the Derby trial at Lingfield. I thought that was by far the best performance. Whether he's the horse to follow into the classics and the rest of the season, I don't know. But if you're going on performance of the weekend, it would be that, wouldn't it? Ambient friendly.
Ambient friendly. Yeah.
That's performance. You know, the horse to follow, I would say. Name's gone. You do yours.
Hamster. Hamster is turning in the wheel.
It's not clicking.
He's getting there.
Sir Michael Stout's horse.
Passenger.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a serious threat.
Yeah.
The rest of the season. I think he's going to be a big player. Look, mine is Los Angeles for the Derby. I think the 8-1 is fair.
20-1 was better.
It's just what an idiot. Like, what an absolute clown. All I had to do was,
to be fair, in your defense, you weren't
and do what I was thinking. But no, I had to go talk to bloody Adam Mills and it's not Adam's fault, by the way. It's not Adam's fault. It's not. I was going to say his name, but I better not because he's not on the show, so it wouldn't be fair to do it to him. But it's not his fault either. It's my fault. I got in my own head. I allowed other people's opinions to get in my head, and I talked myself out of backing him like a fool.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Just very, very briefly, and I don't want to pounce this on you or anything, but we talked about it just a little bit beforehand. I know they talked about it on Look on Sunday as well. Camilla Henderson's tweet about poor Michael Byrne. I didn't realize what a good friend you were of Michael's.
Yeah.
And that you actually gave the eulogy. But Camilla's overall point.
The reading.
Sorry, the one of the readings, but still, that's a massive thing to be doing. I knew you were friends with him. I didn't know you were as close.
Yeah, Mick was one of my best ever friends. Yeah, and always will be. Yeah, geez, where'd you go? It was a week from hell, really. So I've basically, I've only been catching up on the racing the last couple of days because obviously Manchester was on last week. I had other things going on. Terribly sad. Never forget him. If I ever get married, I'm going to have to look for a new best man for my wedding. All that kind of stuff. He was my man. Yeah. And there was so many people. I think one of his brother did the eulogy, and I think he named out 4 people in the room where he was best man for the wedding. Their weddings, you know, he was just a great friend to a lot of people. Very special person. And it's been tough now. It has been tough. Yeah.
God rest him.
Yeah. I couldn't. There's not enough. It's not one of them things you say easily said. There's not enough superlatives I could give to a guy like Michael or Mick, who we called him as, or Mike, whatever. He was top class.
So Camilla's overall point was that's Michael Byrne. The racing is lost. That's Liam Treadwell and James Banks, and that there's a photo of the 3 of them all hanging out together, and now they're all gone in the worst and most unspeakable way. But maybe that's the problem, is that it is an unspeakable way, and we just don't talk about it enough. But it clearly is a stupid question to ask when this has happened to 3 jockeys. And the problem is, it's not just 3. There's multiple
Yeah,
jockeys that
see,
this has
there's
happened to.
another
There's multiple
poor
work
person
riders that this has happened to.
in Lambourne.
Is there enough being done in racing in both Britain and Ireland to make sure that this doesn't happen?
I suppose the answer to that across the board is always no, isn't it? Whether you can point any fingers at anyone is definitely don't want to do that or anything like that. No, people need to want help, and it's an illness, isn't it? And it affects everybody in different ways. Mental health, isn't it? There's so many ways about it, which is what makes it so frustrating and so sad to see, isn't it? And it's very tough to deal with. And I think one thing that should probably be done, probably the older generation might be a bit late for this, but I think when you have these young jockeys come into the weigh room and they get their licenses, now they all get assigned jockey coaches. I think it should be compulsory for them that they should speak to someone at a regular-ish, if you know what I mean, or once a month or once every 2 months or twice a year, whatever. They should be, it should be part of their license that they speak to someone and just get the ball rolling that way, because you just never know when a disease or illness like this is going to affect someone, or if it's going to affect someone. But it's quite common, isn't it, in life these days? And I suppose the sooner it can be identified and kind of things can be done about it, or even the person even identifying it themselves, that they didn't recognize the signs or whatever, and don't let it snowball. I think definitely something we can do for the younger generations coming through that might stop stuff happening in the future. But for the older lot, I suppose it is up to them to kind of get help or find help or recognize that they need help.
Yeah, I think it's all very well and good to say that there are support systems out there and people will listen, but if you're feeling that low, you're going to think that you're the only one who's feeling that way and that nobody else, no one's going to understand it. And you're also, no one wants to be a burden.
No, but we need to get rid. That's the stigma that we need to lose, isn't it? And when you see people like this, you're at pains to tell them you're not a burden. We want to help you, and this is the thing. And everybody out there that suffers with this kind of stuff, they should know that there is so many people that want to see them better and see them get help and want to help them. It's nothing to do with being a burden. No one is a burden in situations like this. And I suppose it's all well and good saying it from the outside looking in, and I've experienced it and I've been in it. We just need to crack that stigma, don't we? And get it out there that it's very common, isn't it? It's extremely common, these kind of things, and nobody, it's slightly different, but physical pain, as a jockey, you go through a lot of physical pain. I would take physical pain any day of the week over the worry or the stress of over mental pain, like losing a race or something like that. I would go racing and any day. I much prefer to go with an ice pack on my arm or my leg than my brain annoying me about something that went wrong. And that's kind of what you're dealing with, isn't it? It's that mental torture. It must be. It's breaking, isn't it? And that's what we need to get people. That's why I was saying it, from the younger generation coming up. If we could just get them identifying it sooner, and hopefully it might help in some way.
Yeah, it's frighteningly prevalent though in racing. I wonder, is it something to do with head injuries? Like, there's been a lot of studies done in the NFL about. CTE.
No, Michael didn't have any history of head injuries. Liam did. Not sure about James, but Mick didn't.
This is the thing about the mind, though. Like, your analogy is perfect, because if you damage your arm or you hurt your leg, you can get treatment. If you break your leg and go into a cast, you'll be off for a few weeks. It's going to be very annoying, but you'll recover.
The pain is fine. It's manageable. It's doable. You can still kind of,
especially with the painkillers these days, Aidan. You'll be flying in the moon.
But plenty of knocks over the year, and you'd be in pain. But it's very kind of bearable, really.
Yeah, But if it's your mind,
it's
like they can give you as many antidepressants as you want. They can give you tablets for energy. That stuff, it wears off after a while. There's all kinds of different science now about antidepressants and whether or not they're actually effective or even a good thing to do because it's altering your brain chemistry.
Yeah.
The reality is we just don't know enough about the mind. Like
No.
you think you do because you think you're talking to a psychiatrist or you're talking to a counselor, or you're talking to a psychologist. Oh, these people know. No,
it's just every case
don't.
is different, and
Every case is different.
Liam, James, and Michael, very different cases, very similar people, as in all very kind, caring, always put others ahead of themselves. Literally, do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing. They were very caring. If you had a problem anytime, any moment, they would be the people you'd ring, and they would drop everything to help you, probably at their own detriment. That's what they had in common, but all different kind of things that added to the same result, which is just such a waste. Yeah, such a waste.
They also saw the pain that went before them and still thought it was the only way out. And that's
it's scary. Yeah, it's very scary. And society these days, it's becoming all too common, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But that's the thing that kind of worries me about it a bit, is that I don't know what the solution to it is. And something weird has happened in the last few years. We're on YouTube, so I can't say too much. But something very odd has happened, particularly with young men.
Yeah.
They just, for whatever reason, this has skyrocketed. And it's not just in British racing, it's skyrocketed around the world. And it's deeply concerning because you would think
we
that
need to attack it when they're younger, don't we? Before things probably escalate in someone's mind. I'm very not qualified for this. I've just literally witnessed it.
Neither am I, mate. I don't think anybody is.
Observations from my point of view and being involved and seeing what it has done to one of my best friends. If it could be identified sooner, as I say, with the younger jockeys coming through, just make it compulsory, no matter who they are, or whether they're riding 100 winners or no winners, have it done, because it doesn't discriminate, does it? Mental illness, it comes from anyone. How many times do they say, like, oh, they have so much to live for, and how could someone like that be depressed? They've got this, they've got that. It affects everybody. You could have nothing and be happy, and you could have everything and be suffering. So I think the sooner it can be identified, the better.
That's the scary thing, Aidan, that if you're talking about people who have lost purpose or don't have anything going for them, you still can't understand it, but it might fit as an explanation as to that person couldn't see a way forward and therefore they took the worst decision. Because this is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Very much so, yeah, exactly, yeah.
But the problem is it's happening to people who seem to have things going for them. And just because, no matter what your perception of someone is, no matter what you think that person is, you have no idea what that person's going with that person's dealing with.
You never, yeah.
And everybody has something, particularly these days. Everybody has something troubling them.
Of course, yeah.
I'm really sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
And thank you for talking about it. I think women are very, very good at, as men, we're good at talking, but we're good at talking about shite.
Yeah.
We're good at talking about, Arsenal were rubbish the other day, or Liverpool blew it again. We're good at that, but we're not good at talking about how we're feeling, what we think about things, what's going on. Women are very good at that.
Slowly breaking down the kind of barriers, isn't it? But not quick enough.
No. But if a friend does reach out to you and starts talking to you about how they're feeling and not how these Aidan O'Brien horses are bombing first time out,
make that your first priority in life. That's all.
Listen to them.
Make that your first priority.
Because it's
till tomorrow.
No, and it's difficult for people to have those conversations. So if somebody is going to the effort of reaching out to you to say something,
but even if you think they should be reaching out, it doesn't hurt anyone to ask, are they okay? They can only say no or bat you off. You're doing it with good intentions, aren't you?
Yeah.
You're not being nosy checking up on someone, are you?
No, and I think particularly in this day and age, where technology is so prevalent, and like you and I are having a conversation on this show, hopefully being watched and listened to by a lot of people who I hope are enjoying it. But we're not in the same room.
No.
And that's the world now. A lot of people don't interact with their friends in the way they used to because they're busy. They don't have time. Their friends are busy. Their family are busy. And you can think that, you could have 1,000 friends on Facebook, but be the loneliest person in the world if there's no one around you.
Yeah.
So if the solution to this, as I see it, and I don't think there is a solution, unfortunately, but one of the things that can be done to try and help is talking. And that doesn't mean talking to a counselor or a psychologist, because that can be very intimidating. Just talking to your friends.
Just start by that, yeah.
Talking to your friends, talking to your family.
And realizing you're not a burden,
and you're not alone.
So much more common than you think.
It's too common.
Yeah.
And it's happened a lot.
Yeah.
And this is another example of that. So
yeah, it's very sad.
Thank you very much for talking about it.
Thank you. Yeah,
God rest
thanks
Michael.
for giving me a chance to highlight how good a person he was. I'll always talk about him. We had great fun as well. We had some great times over the years. So,
what's your favorite memory of Michael or Mick?
We had a lot of skiing holidays.
It's not enough that you're riding racehorses all day and taking risks. You have to go down ski slopes too.
We had a right crew. I think we got 3 or 4 years of skiing in a row for 2 or 3 days mid-season when one was like weather comes into play. We had some good skiing holidays. Yeah, so some great days. Great days.
God rest him, Mick Byrne.
Yeah.
And God rest Liam Treadwell and James Banks as well, for that matter. God rest them.
Yeah.
If you can talk to a friend too. Out of interest, how many jockeys have died from overuse of the sauna?
None, I don't think, is it?
The Professional Jockeys Association. So the amount of jockeys who voted on the sauna ban was less than 50% of the jockeys who ride in the UK.
Yeah.
And the biggest response in the history to a survey carried out by the Professional Jockeys Association got over 80% of the jockeys saying they're physically and mentally worse off with saunas gone from British racecourses than when they were available. And the BHA don't want to know about it, haven't done anything to alter that, have done nothing to alleviate the issue or address the problem. So why do you think they're going to do anything about this?
About the mental health side?
Yeah.
I think there is stuff in place, isn't there? Whether they do more, I don't know. I'd hope they can do more. And we'll ask them to do more. I suppose I don't know really, yeah.
I think priorities need to be sorted out in British racing.
Oh, yeah. Well, where'd you start on that one?
Oh. Well, it's all right, Aidan. Don't worry about it, because Premier Racing is going to say, oh, wait, no, that's turned out to be a complete and utter sham. I'm pretty sure the only reason Premier Racing was brought about was because they wanted to have racing on a Saturday morning. They wanted to have it on a Sunday evening. But if they were to say, we're introducing Saturday racing.
Yeah, but how much of that is the BHA at fault for?
Well, they're the ones who pushed it.
Yeah, I know.
They don't control the fixture list, and
I don't really know the politics of it. If you're, all that kind of stuff of racing. I spent most of my life just trying to ride horses, so I'm very new to this side of the world and have an opinion on. Like, even when you asked me about the other stuff, I was like, no, I'm going to stay out of that. I don't know enough, and I'm qualified to speak about horses and racing, but that's it at the moment. And I do obviously need to read up on my that side of it and be a bit more educated. But at this moment in time, I'm too far behind to have strong opinions. But my reading of British racing is it's a big pie, and you got several parties that are all just running and taking as much as they can and going back to their side of the room. And the BHA are there in the middle trying to stop it, but they ultimately don't have a lot of power.
Yeah. Well, they're almost like the principal who's trying to enforce the rules. The problem is they're the principal of another school that has no jurisdiction.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we all have to come together and work towards racing, going forward. But at this moment, everyone's just working against each other. You got the owners, the jockeys, the trainers, the punters, like the bookmakers, the race courses, which would be the biggest culprit with fixture lists and all that, and not disclosing media rights and all that kind of stuff.
That's the big one.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. So it's what can the BHA actually do to a lot of these things?
But when you have I was going to name someone there, I won't. But when you have people who are running organizations who have control of tracks, and so they have the media rights, and they're condescending and patronizingly saying, we're not sharing any of this data because people wouldn't understand it.
Yeah.
Look, this isn't it? It's very insulting, but what's also insulting is the lip service that's been paid to jockeys and trainers over the years. Yeah. The amount of trainers who've told me they've been in meetings with the BHA who've told them, we're doing incentives to get more horses in training in the UK. We're talking about 2019, this stuff was being talked about. Where is it? What have you done? And go back through the conversations that, fair play to Matt Chapman for really grilling Wilf Walsh on this. I really don't know why Wilf did that interview. Ross Millar and I talked about it in depth on the Final Furlong podcast when it came out. But this was about Premier Racing and how it was going to be funded. Specifically, how the marketing for it was going to be funded. How are you going to tell the public, hey, we've got a Premier Race Day at Musselburgh? And then it turns out the chief executive of Musselburgh is going on Nick Luck's podcast and saying, we don't have funding for this. It hasn't been given to us and no one's talked to us about it. And then Josh Apiafi comes on this show in January and says, yeah, they came up with the Premier Racing idea last year and then did nothing with it at all until December. Who are these people who are running British racing? Because it seems very, very clear that it's not being run with the best interest of the overall sport as a whole. It's being run, as Josh said in January on the Final Furlong podcast, there's too many people who are only concerned with their 12-month P&L because that directly ties to their bonuses. And your idea of it's a big pie, but it's sliced out for various different people who are going to get their share of it, and there's no crumbs for you.
And they'll happily take your share.
And that's British racing.
Yeah.
That is British racing is stakeholders who are all taking the pie, crumbs left over for the owners and the trainers who make the sport work. If the jockeys all went on strike, the sport grinds to a halt.
Yeah.
I don't think you fully realize the power you have. I don't think the owners fully realize the power they have. The trainers definitely don't fully realize the power that they have. Rafe Beckett organized a boycott of a race at Newbury and it worked. But imagine if he was to organize with other trainers and really just go, there's a week, lads, where we're not having any runners in the UK.
Yeah. I think it needs that kind of radical intervention at this stage. Either no jockey turn up for a week or no trainer turn up for a week, or ideally work together to do it, because there's always going to be one or two that probably might do it, whatever. But or maybe the BHA just gets us together and say, right, racecourses control the fixture list. We'd love to get it back, or love to have a bit more say. Let's all get together and not run at certain tracks and get some power back.
Yeah, I can't remember the year, but Lydia Hislop has cited that year as being the worst thing that happened to British racing. It's the year that the control of the fixture list was wrestled away.
Oh, that's 100% it. I think a lot of this stuff you're going on about, you're going the Irish domination at Cheltenham, all that kind of stuff. Racing in the UK is such a diluted product because there's just too much of it.
And do you know, Aidan, I've said this for years on the show, and I've had people
blame the BHA for that.
No, you can't blame the BHA for that. That's
BHA. Whoever gave the fixture list away, definitely.
Yeah, I think it was the BHB back then, wasn't it?
Oh, well, whoever that
they
was.
lost it. But that's another thing. You've got former heads of the BHB, BHA coming out and saying, well, I do this and I do that. You were in power. You could have done those things. You didn't do it. You didn't do it. You mentioned bookmaker sponsorship earlier on. The former head of the BHA was bragging about how he had all these big blue chip companies who were lining up to sponsor marquee races. Where are they? Where's the Apple Gold Cup? Where's the Dell Technologies Eclipse Stakes? We appreciate Coral's support of that race, obviously. But, where are the big sponsors in racing are sports books, bookmakers, and bloodstock farms.
Yeah.
If Juddmonte, Darley, Coolmore, if they all pull their funding, and if the gambling ban is coming into effect in Ireland, it's already gone through the Dáil. It has to be signed off in the Seanad. Extremely rare for the Seanad not to just go, yeah, grand. Big news when the Seanad turn around and reject something and want alterations made to it. Maybe that will happen. Maybe the president of Ireland, who's more of an ambassadorial role, but in this case he does have power. Maybe Michael D. Higgins, who's a big racing fan and attends the Galway races every year, maybe he'll go, this will kill Irish racing, so I'm going to reject this. But that would be a massive scandal if he did. How valuable is Irish racing when bookmakers are sponsoring it but can't get mentioned on television anymore? As in, there's no racing TV in Ireland, there's no Sky Sports Racing in Ireland. So where is the advantage to Newbridge Silverware sponsoring any of the racing in Ireland anymore if it's no longer on racing TV? Yeah. Real question. Yeah. And then the minister who's implementing this compared Irish racing to local GAA, not national, not like county GAA, Kilkenny and Cork, local GAA. This is a multi-billion-pound industry, and we're the world leaders in it. Rugby, Ireland are good at. We've never won the Rugby World Cup. We dominate the world of horse racing. We're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. Yeah, so, big time, for all the criticism of Britain, Ireland is about to blow itself up as well. Yeah. All right. Fun times in the world of racing. I'm sure the two of us are going to be accused of Irish bias now, which is why I had to point out, no, Irish racing is doing its absolute damnedest to sink the ship as well. Aidan, really enjoyed your time on the show. When's your next big media appearance?
Well, nothing planned. Nothing. Still looking for a job, actually.
Any further thoughts on what you want to do?
No. Struggling a bit on that front, but
well, it's to our advantage, so we won't complain. Aidan Coleman, everybody. You can follow Aidan on Twitter. We'll put up a link to his tweet, and it should be on the screen now, I think, if Trish has done that correctly, and if not, my fault. It's always my fault. From Aidan Coleman and me, Emmett Kennedy, thank you very much for watching and listening to the Final Furlong Podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit the likes. Apparently, I should be doing this very early on. I should be telling everybody to like and subscribe, but I don't do it until the end, which is a bit of a stupid thing for me to do. So, have you liked this episode of the Final Furlong Podcast? Brilliant. Thank you very much. If not, all it takes is a like. Thank you. Appreciate it. From Aidan and me, Emmett Kennedy, we'll talk to you again very, very soon on the Final Furlong Podcast. Racing live Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from York for the Dante Festival. We'll see you then. Look after yourself and each other. God bless.
The Final Furlong Podcast is proudly brought to you by Geoff Banks Bet. Join the excitement and sign up to Geoff Banks Online now to get 10% off any net losses returned as cash after your first month of betting up to £500 at geoffbanks.bet.